Hello everyone, welcome to the next episode on ABAP on Cloud Come RESTful ABAP training. In the last session, we talked about creating our processor and approver scenario using managed approach in RESTful ABAP programming. In today's episode, we'll go ahead and enhance our functionality of managed scenario for approver as well as processor to add actions. If time permits, we will also go ahead and add dynamic features as part of our scenario. So let's get started. Let's discuss first of all what is an action in context of RESTful ABAP. Why do we need actions and how can we use these actions as part of RESTful ABAP? So basically, you have seen in the managed scenario, the most of the processing was taken care by the framework. Basically, all the create, update, delete operations were managed by the RESTful framework. But at some point of time, you need to do some custom behaviors. For example, in case of approver scenario, you need the copy by template functionality. So what is an action in context of RESTful ABAP? Action is nothing but are the operations which are non-standard. Non-standard as in create, read, update, and delete. So these are all the operations which are non-standard operations which we want to apply on the business object. Using these actions, we can also perform the CRUD operation with the help of EML. So all the different types of functionality which you would like to develop can be done using this action. Example. So what is our use case? In case of processor scenario, we want to develop a button to be displayed to the user to allow a copy of travel request to a new one. So we want a complete copy of a travel request to a new travel request. In case of approval scenario, we want the travel status to be approved or rejected by the approver. So this is not a create, read, update, right? Rather, it is a custom action, custom functionality, which we want to hook on top of the existing CRUD functionality. Behind the scene, of course, there may be some update, create, but it's not a direct create update. Rather, it's an on-demand action, non-standard operation. In order to achieve this, what are all the steps? But before we move to the steps, let's talk about the types of actions. The first type of action is called static action. This is the default type of action. If you don't mention anything, then this will become the default action. And then second is called instance action. As the name suggests, static action is independent of the instances of business object. What is an instance of business object? Basically, whenever you select an item, let me open our application. So we'll go back to our package, which is already favorites. Go back to the business service. And we had created the processor service binding. We just open that. And then we will just quickly run and see what we have got by far as a result. So we have developed both the service binding for processor and approver. And then we saw also a Fury application, display like Fury application, both for processor and approver. The important thing was in the approver, there was no possibility to edit certain things, but in processor, there was possibility to create, update, and delete everything, be it a travel, be it a booking or booking supplement. However, the approver can only see and approve and reject. So let me open the first application for, and then the second application also for approver. Both of them I will open up. Ask me credentials. That's okay. Just log in. And I will see quickly the Fiori app preview for the approver. So what we want now, as you can see here, this is our processor app. I just say go button, and you can see this is the data which we have got it here. I think it's an approver app. Let me just cross check. It's not processor app. It's approver one, I think. Just open the processor one. Because in the processor one, there was a create option, but in approver, there is no create option actually. Yes, this is the processor one. You see there's a create button, there's a delete button, and I say go button, and then you see it will show up all the options, right? So there's a radio button here. This indicates that I can select a particular line item. So this every line item here is an instance of the business object. This is one instance, one object. This is another instance of business object. This is another instance of, each of them is an instance of business object. Now, if you want to define your action generically, which means it can be applied on any business object. I can select 1, 2, 3, whatever I like, and then I can do a create copy by template. Okay, copy as a template. So which means, which is true also, you can do a copy of any of the instance, you can do copy of any of the line. That means it should be defined probably as a static action because it's independent of instance. You can do a copy on any line, yeah, any line. That's why it's independent of the BO. The behavior implementation, what we will write, the coda, all the coda will remain same irrespective of whether you select line number 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 20, 500, not, doesn't matter. What matters is the implementation remains the same. However, on the other side, when you look at the one which you see is the instance one. Okay, the second type is called instance action. Instance action is dependent on instance. Example, suppose the travel request is already approved. So shall we allow user to approve again? What do you think, guys? If a travel request is already approved, it's already, the status is approved, should you allow user to approve it again? Should you allow user to approve it again? If a travel request is already approved, should you allow user to approve it again? Probably not, correct? You don't want to. So you don't want that to approve it again. You want to allow only reject. And if it is rejected, then only allow approve. So it's mutually exclusive. So you don't want to apply this operation statically, rather you want it to be on the instance, on exact single instance. Yeah, that's what is called the instance action. We will be doing that. So let's go to the system, and now let's look at the steps to implement that. So what are all the steps to implement an action? The very first step is we need to define these actions. Step number 1 is the define actions at the behavior definition of BO. Okay, which is actually you developed as a central pillar. If you remember back to the diagram, so you have implemented a behavior definition here after the BO. So this is your BO collection of entities, and then you have implemented this. So all the action you will put them here. all of them, whether you want approve, reject, everything, whatever you want, you put it in the base behavior definition, I would call it as. So put all the behavior actions which you need at base behavior definition. So define the actions at the base behavior definition of the business object. Okay, and what is the syntax to do that? For defining an action, the syntax to define an action is use either static if you want it to be static. Okay, I'm so sorry, I did a mistake here. By default all are instance action. I'm so sorry. So we will be using instance action even for copy feature. So it should be applied on at a single instance. Okay, single record we want to apply that. So that by default it's instance. So we will just, if you want a static, then you have to mention static. If you don't mention static, by default an instance action. Then we have action as a keyword, and then you will put action name, whatever action name you want to give, you can keep. Parameter, then you will put importing parameter data type. So since I want my same business object itself to be imported, then I will use self. And then export parameter result, you will put possibly the result cardinality. What is the output of the result? Is it a multiple record or single record? And then you will put again the data type. So we'll put $self. Self indicates my structure, same as the entity structure of travel if you're doing this action for travel. Okay, this is the syntax. Step number one, define the action at the base behavior definition level. Okay, this is what we do. Let's go back to the system, and I will together with that also define something called a dynamic feature. So step number two, define a dynamic feature. What is a dynamic feature control? Let's talk about that also. If you go back here and select a particular travel request, and now if I go for edit mode, watch out. What are all it allows me to edit? It is also allowing me to edit the travel ID. Guys, do you think in the edit mode I should be able to change travel ID? The primary key of the record, can I change it? What do you think, guys? Does it make sense to allow user to change this travel ID during edit mode? Would you ever allow user to change sales order ID when user edits a sales order? No, 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 right? So you want probably certain things to be mandatory, certain things to be read only, but you never want in the edit mode travel ID to be edited ever. So how do we control this dynamically? Basically, why it needs to be controlled dynamically? Because system should know, are we in edit mode or create mode. In the create mode, still though, it should be allowed to be in edit mode. Travel ID should be editable in create mode, but travel ID should be not in edit mode, in the update mode. When you are in update, at that time it should be read only, but currently you see it's also allowing me. This is called dynamic feature control. There is another called static feature control, which we already did. If you remember our behavior definition which we created, we already did something called static feature control. So static feature control, let me show you where we did that. So we already done the static feature control earlier. So if you see here, this field read only, field mandatory, this is static feature control, which means for every record, whether you are in create mode, edit mode, delete mode, doesn't matter, these fields will behave exactly mandatory in all modes. This field will always behave read only in all modes. That's a static feature control. Let me also note down. But in this case, in our case, now it should be dynamic. Dynamic, why? Because when you are in edit mode, that time it should be read only. When you are in create mode, that time it should be editable. So it's a dynamic feature control. So it depends on object, whether your object is in create state or whether it is in edit state. So that's why it's called instance feature control, or also known as dynamic feature control. So now watch out, how do we define a dynamic feature control? I'll also do that. So the syntax to define a dynamic feature control is using field, which we did already earlier. It's not case sensitive. You can write in capital or small, doesn't matter. Parenthesis, and then we have features, instance, and then we will have the field ID, field name, whatever field name it is. So this is what additional you see now here, which indicates that this is a dynamic feature control. When you have this one kept here, it indicates a dynamic feature control. Clear, everybody? This is called dynamic feature control. The another one is called static feature control, the one which we saw earlier. So this is called dynamic feature. We'll have always one record today. Tomorrow, when SAP opens up this table for multiple selection, these keys will get multiple records. So you have to make multiple copies. But today itself, our code is written in such a way that it will support multiple if the multiple selection is enabled in future. So that's the reason there is a loop here on keys. Keys is a plural indicates it will give you a table. It's a table basically of all the selections, but today on the UI side there's only one selection which is permitted. So we just though still we have to loop over it. Okay, so for key value, basically each key value in keys, we are just creating a loop, for loop, new syntax. And then what we say is for each of the loop, just prepare the new table. So we're just preparing the new table. Percentage key equals to my key value hyphen key, it's key. Take that up. Then I have to also pass here the control structure. So percentage control, I want to read travel ID. If the travel ID already there, yeah, if it is already there, make it non-editable. So if ABAP, I hope you all remember the EML, how to use EML. I've taught you the EML completely in one of the chapter. So this is how we do, and result data. Okay, awesome. So this is the step number one. We are reading based on the key which we have received. We are reading its travel ID. Now, very simple thing. If the travel ID is there, make the field non-editable, because in the edit mode, of course your travel ID will be there. Okay, so that's what we are doing now. So we just pass the result back, and I will say my result back will be value hash, an internal table again. We are sending it for ls travel. In this internal table I'm looping, pass its key and pass the feature ID. And now we have to also pass the feature control. So feature control is always passed in a compiler generated variable called dollar field or percentage field. In this, now you can pass for each field the settings. So for travel ID, I'm saying the same constant interface we will be using everywhere. And in this we have a field constant FC. Under that we have field status, and then we will pass it as read only. This is dynamic feature control. Dynamically I'm passing this at runtime. When you drill down inside a record, that point of time we read the entity, we check, we know that there's a travel ID, and if there's a travel ID, then of course we are just passing its key and making the travel ID as read only. Let's activate this feature. So this is a dynamic feature control. You can do a lot of stuff like enabling, disabling buttons, enabling, disabling mandatory fields, non-mandatory fields, read only. All those features you just saw that here in this constant. You can actually control all of them. Let's go back now and experience it. I'm just going to come back, refresh. So last time you saw when I was editing our record, it was allowing me to edit the travel ID. Okay, It was allowing us to change the primary key in edit mode. It should not happen. So now we have a dynamic feature control. Let's go inside. Let's do a go, and I select it, drill down, and you see this one was editable last time. I just go for edit. Voila, you can see now this field is no more editable. User can't touch the travel ID thanks to feature control. But in create mode still I should be able to edit and create. Yes, fantastic. You can see in create mode still we can go ahead and edit, but in edit mode now no more we allow user to change this. We don't allow user to change this no more. Don't allow that. Okay. So that's what exactly called dynamic feature control. I hope you are all clear how the dynamic feature control works when it comes to SAP UI, when it comes to RESTful ABAP. Now let's implement the create travel by template. Basically, this is an action now. So what do we want to do? We want to basically, let me note down the pseudo code. Step number 1, identify the maximum travel ID which exists in our database table. Okay. Yeah, that's step number 1. Step number 2, read the entire BO, read the travel instance using EML. Basically read the complete record data which needs to be copied. Step number 3, create a new BO instance using EML. And if you remember, it was modify entities syntax which we use to do the creation. So these are all the 3 simple step process through which we will be creating it. Yeah, so let's go ahead and see that. Step number 1, read the max travel ID. So I'll just go back and say select max travel ID, the travel ID database table from DMO, that's a main database table. ABAP syntax to read travel ID. So we got the travel ID over here. Yeah, so now in the next step we will read the selected record. We need to make a copy of selected record. So let's apply the read entity. Exactly same syntax just now we did. This is exactly same thing. I'll take it from here and put it here. So we are reading now the travel again based on keys, but this time I will be reading more properties like I need travel ID, agency ID, customer ID. So let's pass them in the control structure. So just do that. Dirty. Okay, so I will be not just reading travel ID, but I'll also be reading the agency ID, customer ID, booking fee. We basically want to make a copy, total price, currency code. So these are all the properties I will be reading now, and then we will get again the result in LT travel. That's how we're reading. If the read fails, then it will capture the read. You can do all the error handling accordingly. But now next step is we will be creating. Yeah, so for creation we have to prepare a table. As you all have seen the EML, if you remember the EML chapter where I've taught you how to create a new instance of a travel, create, read, update, delete, all we saw the using EML. So we are performing EML inside. So now let's say data LV today, we just also get today's date. So CL underscore ABAP context info get system date. Then we have also here LT create table for create, and then we will put our BO name. What is our BO name? And then we will just prepare the table which we need to pass to the BO for creation. We just loop over this record in the LT travel. So basically based on the key which you pass, you may get multiple record. As I told you, in future SAP may allow on the front end side multiple selection. So if let's say you selected 2 records and then you click on that action called create copy, yeah, in that case how what should happen, it should loop over both the records and create 2 copies actually. That's why we are already today itself handling it in this way with the help of loops in the system. Okay, and now we will just prepare the data to be inserted. Travel ID will be every time we'll doing a travel ID plus 1. So whatever travel ID you got it here, this one plus index. Then the agency ID we already got it from this row. Customer ID, booking fee, currency code, all the properties which you just read down. Customer ID, booking fee, total price, currency code. Yeah, we just put that, and then we'll put description. Just put a hardcoded description. Overall status, just put open, and then we have to also pass the control structure as already we did that in the past to tell the system what are all is getting created. And then we just populate this control structure. So control structure, we just have to say everything is getting created. Travel ID is equals to ABAP behavior on. Basically I'm passing everything. Yeah, everything I want to pass. Also we forgot to pass the begin date and end date. Begin date is today's date, travel today's date, end date is 30 days plus today's date. Okay, so begin date, third date, booking fee, total price, currency code, description, overall status, we pass everything. And now we will just inform the system that we want to update everything. Agency ID is also I'm passing to you. Framework, I'm also giving you customer ID. So you have to inform the framework what are all you're passing to the framework. Begin date, end date, total price, currency code, description, overall status. So travel ID, agency ID, customer ID, begin date, end date, currency code, total price, booking fee we didn't pass. So booking fee, we passed everything now in the control structure also. That's all. And now the table is prepared for creating the data. Take this table and fire the EML syntax, modify entity. And your entity name, business object name. Which entity I want to modify, we have to mention that entity, which is travel, the alias name of the entity in the business object, create from LT create. This one is the table we just prepared for creation, and then we have to say mapped. If there is a problem while creation, just map that. This error messages, mapped it here. And then if there is a problem with, okay, you can directly map it to mapped, I think. Yeah, that's output parameter of this method actually. If there's something failed, report it in the reported table. So these are automatic parameters which are available. It will system will map this creation to these parameters and it will inform the result. So let's finally export the result. The structure value hash, and I'll say for create in this creation. This is all created. Index, and we just pass here all the reference ID. So we are returning back now the data to the UI. So that's what we will do. CID reference we have to say, and then we will take this keys, whatever input keys were, this index we pass hyphen CID reference. Why it's giving an error? Keys of, okay, space is missing. Yeah, CID reference. So this was the reference key which I got from the UI, and now I've generated a new key which I will give you here. So this is how we return the data back. Created. Whatever is created, we are returning that back. Awesome. So this is the implementation using EML for making a create by copy. Let's activate this. Now this behavior implementation is done at the base level, but this needs to be exposed. To expose the behavior implementation, we have to go one level above. So what we did is generate the class. Step 5 was create the implementation method. Step number 6. What is step number 6? We need to now expose the action in the behavior definition of processor. Yeah. So until unless it's not exposed, it will never be consumed. So you have to also do the exposure. How do you do that? Go to the base. Go to the base. Base is this one is the base. Where is the base definition? Yeah, this one. So here you see you created this action. Just copy as it is. Go to processor behavior definition and put that here. That's how you're exposing the functionality. So here you have super class which has everything. All the implementation is also done in this ABAP class, and from here now you are exposing it exactly in the process. So in the processor will not expose the approve and reject, because for processor only the create travel by template is important. Okay, so only that much I'm exposing it out here. Okay, what's giving an error? Projection slash action is not supported in this ABAP release. Why it's giving this error? Ideally it should allow me to put that here. We have to do basically we have to project this out. I think we just have to do this. No, why it's giving me an error? Okay, I think I have to just remove this guy. Let me check. Ideally it should not give me an error. Should be able to expose the action here in the behavior definition of my processor scenario. Should be able to expose that here. Okay, am I missing some syntax? So whatever we've created action, this action needs to be exposed. Just give me a moment. I already have an implementation done. I'll just quickly open and check that. So just check what is the syntax to do the projection. That's what I want to just check. So I go to this package and I do have already the definition for processor, and it says use action. Okay, syntax is to expose is use action. You're just using it, so you have to just say use action. Okay, so to expose this, the syntax is to say use action, action name. So make sure your action is already defined and implemented in base behavior definition and base implementation, which we already did that. We're just going to use it now here. So just go back and we go back to processor and we say use action, action name, control space, and you can see all three actions are visible, but for the processor only this action is relevant. I will just expose that. That's my step number 6. Superb. Now step number 7, on the Fiori UI we should be able to see a button to make a copy and invoke this action. That's what we want on the Fiori UI. How do we achieve that? Very easy. Go back to the processor CDS view where you had kept all the UI annotations. So I'm going to go back to our core data service for processor travel here, and we will be adding UI annotation to enable the action. So let's come down. So this is for making a copy, so you can do it on the top also, doesn't matter. So we just have to add the action now to be allow user to able to create now with the template. So we can just add it on the top, comma, at the line item annotation level we have to just add an action. So say type for action. Yeah, so remember you're adding a travel ID level in the line item annotation, we just adding that. So for action, and then we have to say data action name. What is the name of my action? Control space, it doesn't find, but you just have to copy it from there. And now it's case sensitive, so just copy exactly the one which you defined and put it here. So this is the action which should trigger, and as a result of that the behavior implementation will trigger to be able to make a copy. So all our code will trigger accordingly. What label you want to show to the user? I say make a copy. Okay, make a copy. I just save this. That's how the Fiori will now show a button. On click of button, this action will be called. This action is already exposed in the behavior definition from the processor BO, and then the same is implemented in the base behavior definition, and then there's an implementation already we did it in the class accordingly. So let me just activate that, come back to the Fiori UI, and I will quickly refresh on the Fiori UI. So this is our processor scenario. So we should now be able to see a button called copy, make a copy. Oh wow, there you go. You can see there's a button, make a copy. It's a non-standard action. Non-standard means no create, no update, no delete. Basically, it's my own custom functionality. Let's observe what is the maximum travel ID currently available in the system. So just have to go here, Just check the max travel ID is 9595, which we have in the system. So the one as per our logic which should create is 9596. Okay, system will be creating 9596. I'll just come back, select any of the item, doesn't matter. Just want to make a copy of this guy. So you see, I'll make a copy of this guy, 500 5000. Okay, 70011 and 11. So 1111 500 5000, and this date will change to today's date. This will change to today's date plus 30 days. Currency will remain AED 500 5000 1111. Okay, make a copy. Action cannot be performed for the standard object. Why it's giving this error? It should not give this error. Standard object. Just refresh. It should allow me to do this. Why it's not allowing? Are we missing something? Make a copy. Action cannot be performed for the selected object. There's some problem happening. Let's go and debug. Is it going to trigger my debugging point? So let's try that. So I just come here, put up a debugger point. Let's see at least is it triggering this create travel by template or not. This is my action handler. So I'm going to come back again, make a copy. Now it's not triggering our breakpoint. It should make trigger or breakpoint. Yes, now it's triggering the breakpoint. You see, it's a little slower. So now let's observe what's going wrong. What's the problem with this? So first step, F6. It's a ABAP code. You can debug like an ABAP. I just press F6. System gets me a travel ID. Hopefully, yes, it's 9595, which is maximum. Now it reads the entity F6. Did it read the entity? LT travel, yes, it has read the exact record which you selected. You see, read entity worked fine. The record which we selected, it has read. Now it just does a LV today, and then it prepares a table to create. Okay, it's preparing a table here. You see, I press F6. Let's see what is my table to create has got. LT create has got travel ID, agency ID, customer ID, begin date as today's date. You see 4th of January 2020, and 1 month advance as end date 3rd of February 2020. Booking fee it has picked up, total price it has picked up, currency code it has picked up. Welcome to our AP. And then we have overall status, created by, created on, changed by, changed on. We are not touching. In the control structure, it is going to inform the ABAP framework that we want to change all these things. Okay, this is also all well. It has prepared this LT create, and now I'll just press F6. After F6, let's see if there is an error message. So let's see reported. There's no error message, you see, in the reported, guys. Zero. Let's see if there is any failed key. Just check failed key. Failed key is also zero. Hopefully it should have created it. Why it's not working? Let me just also check the keys. Keys has a reference. Travel ID. Are we missing something? F8. Just go back. Yes, it created. Look at here, guys. Maybe it was just a refresh issue. You can see the next travel ID 9596 is now created in the system. I didn't touch the code. You see, welcome to RAP. Oh, so whatever I selected, it has made a copy of that. Fantastic. What an action. What an action. If you come down, you see there's an exact copy, welcome to RAP, which is now existing. Didn't do anything, just debugged it to find where is the problem. It simply worked actually. Maybe it's just a refresh issue at times in the cloud system. So now it's working fine. Let's make another copy. Let's try. I make a copy from this Voyager Enterprises 7011. And you see, remember this 505,000. Okay, let's make a copy again. Make a copy. Again, it will hit my breakpoint. Just press F8 here. F8. Come back. Yes, it has made a next copy 9597. You see 500, 5000, 11 and 11. Superb, guys. Are you all clear how to implement actions, custom action? This was one question from one of you, and about how can we implement custom actions of our choice rather than create, read, update, delete. Other than that, if you want some extra processing to be done in the standard generated application, how can we do that? Is that clear, everybody? Are you all clear? So time for an exercise. Go ahead and implement. So I will leave you guys today early because I have to go somewhere. That's the reason I've also preponed the class today. But I just wanted to make sure that at least I cover something and you don't have a much loss of today's session. So almost just another 20 minutes is what we will not cover, but this is an exercise for you to implement. Go ahead and implement the methods for approve and reject, and then enable the approve and reject buttons for approver scenario. The approver app, it should become enable. So you see just now, this button is only available. There's no approve reject here for processor because it's a processor scenario. So similarly in the approver application, this approver application, there has to be approve and reject button here. Okay, so in processor you have this make copy, but in approver you will have approve and reject buttons here. That's what you need to enable. Both are two different Fiori apps with two different scopes, with two different behavior definition and the UI annotations accordingly. So just try this exercise and come back to me with the results. Let's see how many of you can complete. Don't touch my objects, just try to implement your own objects. I will share the complete code what we did today as part of the notepad file with you. It should be very easy, trust me, very very easy. You guys can go ahead and try this out. It will be exactly the same way we will, just the way we did it today, same way it will be. And then in the next session we will also talk about the validation, how to achieve the validation with respect to system, and also we'll look at determination. Determination means calculating the total price based on the changes in the booking and booking status. All right, so that's also we will do an auto calculation of total price while creating the booking, while creating the travel. The processor has to enter multiple currencies and multiple values, and it should pertain then automatically convert it to the total travel value. These two functionality along with this approve reject exercise we will look at in the next class. Any questions before we close today's session? There's a question, when can we expect fetching data from HANA server on premise? So that will be next weekend. We will look at how to build an API and how to consume that API over here. Okay, so for that I also need system access, Praveen. So I will also come to you. You have a system, right? You said you have a ABAP on cloud system in your company, productive system.
I have a system, but I don't have any HANA server to access. We are working only on cloud. That's it. We don't have
That's
any
okay. That's
database.
okay. I have an S4HANA server. I will plug our S4HANA OP server with this system. Okay,
Okay, thank
we'll
you.
do that. We'll do that. So both ways we'll do. We will see how to fetch data in the cloud using an S4 cloud or S4 OP, and how to fetch data using ABAP on cloud to OP. Both direction we'll see. Okay, we'll see both direction, how to fetch data, web API. Yes, exactly, API, it's called web API in cloud. I will show you, Sushant, web API in cloud. We will also see that scenario. So creating web API in cloud, which is exposing an API out of your wrap, and then the next scenario is consuming it in S4 system, and the other way around, how to consume an S4 API in the app on cloud. Both direction we'll see it actually. That's the plan. And then we'll also build a Fiori app ultimately in the web ID and deploy to the SAP Cloud Platform. And then finally the ABAP Git topic. So these are all the topics which are remaining in our classes. Awesome. So I'll catch you up again.
Anubhav, one quick question.
Yes,
Will it be
please.
like a web API on a cloud system?
Yes,
Like not
yes,
just on a ABAP on cloud, right? Like
yes.
just on a cloud system? Okay.
It will be a web on cloud system, web API, which we will learn. So because if you see here, when we create the behavior definition, okay, So if you come here and when you try to create a service binding, you will observe that there's a concept here in this. There's a concept called web API. You see this web API? This is what we'll learn. So till today we did it for UI. Now we'll do for web API. But sorry guys, I have to leave because I have an urgent meeting to catch today. So that's the reason I'm leaving you guys earlier, but that's okay. We'll come back and we'll implement. We'll complete the managed scenario latest by tomorrow's class, and then we'll talk about the APIs which you guys were expecting since long time. We'll talk about the web API creation in a ABAP on cloud system. We'll also talk about how to consume an S4 HANA API in a ABAP on cloud system. For that, I will take help from Praveen because I need also a productive ABAP on cloud system there to be able to achieve such scenarios. All right, Praveen. So I'll reach back to you, Praveen. Okay. Cool, guys.
Okay.
Thank you so much. See you in the next class. Goodbye.